How our brains work. Our brains are one of the most important parts of our body. The human brain is an organ that is located inside of our skull and acts like a command center for our whole body. The job of our brain is to control our whole body. Our brains are called involuntary. This means it works without us controlling it. Every action we do, like moving our bodies, breathing, seeing, eating, and thinking, are done with control from our brains. If we didn't have a brain, we would have nothing to control our body parts. So you look over here, picture of our skull. This is what the bone that helps protect our brain. See another picture there of the brain inside of a person's head. Parts of the brain. Our brain consists of three main parts. Each part of our brain controls different things. The first part of our brain is called the cerebrum. This is the largest part of the brain, and it controls how our bodies move and how we think. Our cerebrum can be split into two sides, a left hemisphere and a right hemisphere. A fun fact, the left side of our brain actually controls the right side of our bodies, and the right side of our brain actually controls the left side of our bodies. So if you look at that picture up here, whenever we think of our brain, the biggest part is the cerebrum. This is probably the part that most of us think about when we think about our brain. The cerebrum helps control our movement and a lot of our thinking. And if we look here, this is the top of our brain. You can see the brain split into two sides, the right hemisphere and the left hemisphere. And the fun fact that we said is that the right part of our brain actually controls the left side of our body, and the left side of our brain actually controls the right side of our body. So if you like to draw or write with your right hand, you're actually using your left side of your brain to control your fingers. Or if you like to kick a soccer ball with your left foot, it's actually your right part of your brain controlling it. Second part of the brain is called the cerebellum. The cerebellum is a very important part of our brain and is smaller than our cerebrum, and it's located just under the cerebrum. The job of our cerebellum is to help with our posture, our balance, our coordination, which is a fancy word for how our muscles work together, and our speech, which is another word for how we speak. So if we look at the picture of the human brain up here, we can see this part right here is called the cerebellum. It's smaller and just underneath the cerebrum, and it helps us with different things like our balance and our coordination. We see a picture here, two of it highlighted. So my friends who like to ride a bike or ice skate, when we do different sports and activities with different coordination like throwing and catching and helping with us talking with our speech, this is all controlled with our cerebellum in our brain. Third part of our brain is called the brainstem. The brainstem has many basic functions, including helping with our heart rate, breathing, sleeping, and eating. All the information relayed from the body to the cerebrum and the cerebellum must travel through the brainstem. The brainstem is located at the base of the brain near our spinal cord and is a tube shape. So if we look right here, we can see at the very bottom the brainstem, and it's highlighted down here. Our brainstem helps with our heart rate, so when our heart is beating, helps us with control our breathing, helps us control our sleeping and our eating. And anytime any messages get sent to our brain, to our cerebellum or to our cerebrum, has to travel through our brainstem. The nervous system. Our brain's part of what's called our nervous system. Different parts of our body often work together and do certain tasks. When multiple body parts work together, it's called a system. We've talked about other systems throughout the year. We talked about the digestive system, which are the body parts that help us eat, the circulatory system, which are the body parts that help our blood move, and the immune system, which are the body parts that help us fight diseases and viruses. The job of our nervous system is to help other body parts all work together, and the main part of our nervous system is our brain. One way I like to think of our nervous system is like a telephone or a computer. Our brain sends messages throughout our body in order to make sure that they're working. So we can show a picture here of our brain. This is the main part of our nervous system, and the job of our nervous system is to make sure all of our body parts are working together. We also have a spinal cord, which goes right down our back. So if you feel your spine, that long bone in your back, it protects the spinal cord, which helps sends messages throughout our body. So what happens is when we want to do certain things, like if I want to pick up a pencil, my brain sends a message all the way to my hand and tells me to pick up that pencil and controls my hand. If we didn't have a brain, then we wouldn't have that command center telling different body parts to do different things. And our nervous system controls all the different things that help our body move and work. If we didn't have a nervous system, our brain wouldn't have any way to communicate with the different parts of our body. So when we do different things, it's our brain controlling our body. Ways to keep our brain safe and healthy. First thing we can do is make sure we wear a helmet or our seatbelt if we're in the car. Whenever we're doing fun activities that could cause injuries, like riding our bikes or playing certain sports, it's very important that we wear a helmet and buckle our seatbelt to help protect our heads. We see a friend over here wearing their helmet. If we were playing different sports too, like hockey or football, they wear helmets to protect their heads. Riding a bike, we want to wear a helmet in case we fall, we don't hit our head and get hurt. And wearing a seatbelt is very important, and riding in the correct size car seat, because if there's ever an accident or they stop, you don't want to hit your head on the car or the car seat. Number 2, we want to make sure we eat healthy foods. When we eat healthy foods, we are getting our body the vitamins and minerals it needs to help us function and stay healthy and strong. So healthy food can help our rest of our body and make our brain stay nice and healthy and safe too. Number 3, we want to make sure we exercise. Exercising helps our entire body and can help reduce stress, which can affect our brains. Exercising helps keep our entire bodies healthy, including our brains. We want to also make sure that we get enough sleep. Even though our brains are still working when we go to sleep, our brains can go into a lower power mode, just like other body parts, and need rest just like our other body parts. And we also want to make sure we have enough rest for our brain so that we can focus and think the next day too when we're in school. So just because we're sleeping doesn't mean our brain turns off. Our brain is always working, but it goes into like a low power mode, just like other involuntary body parts we have. But we want to make sure it gets rested too so that we can think and do all the things we need to do the next day. Also, we can always want to make sure we're always learning. Since we can't physically exercise our brains like the muscles in our arms or our legs, trying to learn something new each day can keep our brain constantly thinking and challenging and working hard to keep it sharp and healthy. Our brains like fun and learning new challenges. So to review, our brains are one of the most important parts of our body. Our brains are called involuntary, which means they can work on their own. Our brains are always working, even if we are sleeping. Our brains are located inside of our skull. Our skull are the bones in our head which help protect our brain. Since our brains are very important and we want to keep it safe, we have bones in our head to help protect it. Our brains are often nicknamed the command centers because our brains control every part of our body. Our brains are part of the nervous system. The job of our nervous system is to make sure all of our body parts are working together correctly. So our nervous system is in charge of sending messages from our brain to different parts of our body, because in order for different parts of our body to work and control, it's controlled by our brains. Our brains are made up of 3 different parts. The first part is the cerebrum. This is the largest part of our brain, and it is what helps us with moving our bodies and thinking. So if we look at the picture over here, this big part right here is the cerebrum. This is what we think of most of the time when we think of our brain. Very big, and we want to make sure we're taking care of our cerebrum, and it's what helps us with moving our bodies and thinking. The next part is the cerebellum. This is the part of our brain under the cerebrum which helps with our posture, our balance, our coordination, and our speech. So we have this cerebellum here, helps us with our balance and our posture and with our speech, so the way we speak to people, our coordination, which is how our different body parts move together, so like throwing a ball, kicking a soccer ball, running, walking, balancing, so if we're riding our bike, this is all controlled right here with our cerebellum. And the last part is the brainstem. This is the tube-shaped part, which is located at the very bottom of our brain and helps us with controlling our heart rate, breathing, sleeping, and eating. So our brainstem controls a lot of the parts that we don't need to control ourselves. So when we're moving our arms and our legs, we're controlling that. However, when we are not thinking about it. We don't control our heart rate. We don't really need to control our breathing, sleeping, and eating. Our brain can help control it on its own, which is called involuntary. Lastly, we want to make sure we're taking good care of our brains. Doing simple and safe tasks every day can help keep our brain safe and healthy. Make sure if we're riding a bike or doing anything that could cause injury to our head, we wear helmets and our seatbelts that can help protect our brains from unwanted injuries. We want to make sure we're getting enough exercise every day and we eat healthy foods to help keep our brains healthy. We want to make sure we get enough sleep each night so our brains are rested and we can focus in school the next day. And we want to try and do fun brain activities and try to learn new things so our brain can be challenged and keep our brain nice and sharp and working hard.